Oh boy, this terrible week for me was finally over, and now it's time for my week 11 picks. And last week, oh boy, my worst so far this year, 6-9. But in my defense, all the games except for one, Packers at Titans, I believe all the losses I had except for one were within a touchdown. So it wasn't like I was that off. It's not like every one of them were like half of them were like blowouts. Only one of them were. So overall my win percentage is back under 600 again, which kind of sucked. So I got a bit. So I'm really behind now everyone else that I'm competing against now. And then of course we get to the playoff bracket now. It would be in the AFC it would be the Patriots, and now the Chiefs with the byes. It would be the Broncos going to the Texans and the Raiders going to the Ravens. In the NFC it would be the Cowboys and Seahawks with the byes. The Redskins going to the Falcons, and then the Giants going to the Lions. And my Super Bowl pick has changed. I last for like 3 weeks. I think I had it was on Patriots beating the Cowboys, but now it's going to be Patriots beating the Seahawks, because since the Vikings are no longer going to hold back the Giants are going to go back on their Super Bowl runs they've had all these last bunch of years, beat the Lions. And since I think the Falcons would beat the Redskins, I would set the Giants up at the Cowboys, who I think would pull off another upset and beat the Cowboys again. But then when they go to the Seahawks, they'll get crushed. So that's my new Super Bowl pick right now. The Patriots beating the Seahawks. And now let's get to my Week 11 picks. And we first start off with the Thursday night game, which is the Saints going to the Panthers. Man, this series, like the last bunch of years, is going like back and forth between each other. I remember last time Thursday night game between these two back 2014. I mean, the Saints destroyed the Panthers in that one, for crying out loud. But of course, oh man, that sucks for both the Broncos. Broncos. The Saints and Panthers are blowing those games they had last Sunday too. But of course, the Panthers are the home team this time, and I think the last 4 years they have a 3-1 record against the Saints. That defense is still terrible for the Saints, although it is not as good for the Panthers too. But I think the Panthers will win this 31-28. And then we get to the Sunday games, starting off with the 1 p.m. games, and first up would be the Bills going to the Bengals for, I believe, the first time since 2010. Oh, remember that game? The Bengals went to halftime with a 31-14 lead, and the Bills ended up winning 49-31. Oh my God, what? Talk about an epic collapse the Bengals had that year. They probably should have fired Marvin Lewis that year too. And now the Bengals, that was a tough loss against the Giants. And the Bills had their bye week after that disappointing finish against the Seahawks. But of course, the Bengals are at home. I think the Bengals will win 31-16. But something keeps telling me that the Bills might somehow pull it off, because the Bengals can't stop screwing up. And then we get quite to an interesting game, and that's the Steelers going to the Browns. Because I remember I said last time the Browns were 0-10 for the first time ever, so they can go 0-11 for the first time ever. And if they do lose to the Steelers, or the Ravens win against the Cowboys, the Browns will be the first team eliminated from the playoffs. And that will officially be year number 15 since they've been back to the playoffs. And seeing how the Raiders are playing this year, they might have sole possession as the second longest playoff drought in the league, since they still haven't tied with the Raiders. They both haven't been there since 2002. And the Bills still have the number one playoff drought at the moment, haven't been since 1999. So, I mean, the Steelers, actually, since 2012, I think it's been split. Yeah, Browns won 2012 and 2014. Steelers won on the odd numbered years. So it's not like unusual for the Browns to beat the Steelers. And I know the Browns are shitty. I know I'm going to probably get completely fall flat on my face with this pick. But I think the Browns will pull off the upset to avoid going 0-11 and probably put the Steelers in an even bigger hole. I say it would be 34-28, but I know for a fact I will not be surprised at all, and I'm expecting it still, that the Steelers will win, but something's just telling me that the Browns will finally get their first win of the year. And it's the Ravens going to the Cowboys for the first time since 2008, and their first time in A&T Stadium in the regular season, since, remember, the Ravens were the last team to ever play in Texas Stadium because of Jerry Jones' greed. And remember, the Ravens have never lost to the Cowboys before, which is quite impressive. But I don't think that's going to be the case this time. I mean, they have the number one run defense in the league right now. But hey, the Packers had the number one run defense, and Ezekiel Elliott ran like 154 yards, was it, against them? And now they're going to be at the Cowboys for once? I'm sure that bubble will pop for the Cowboys eventually, but this week I don't think that's going to happen, and the Cowboys will win a close one, 24-17. Finally get their first win against the Ravens. And then it's the Jaguars going to the Lions for the first time since 2008. And how about that? Thanks to the Packers' misfortunes and the Vikings collapse after that 5-0 start, now the Lions have the lead in the NFC North. And gee, if the season ended today, they would win the NFC North for the first time since 1993, back when it was the NFC Central. But I know they're a much better team than the Jaguars, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win, but this is the Lions we're talking about. Remember, they're very inconsistent. I mean, they fucking blew it against the Titans earlier this year. They blew it against the Bears. They had a shot to possibly beat the Texans, so they're not a team that can easily, consistently win games that they probably should have easily won. And I think that's going to happen. And I think the Jaguars will win 24-21. But I also wouldn't be surprised, too, if the Lions somehow pulled it off. And it's the Titans going to the Colts. And, damn, the Colts. I mean, the Titans have not beaten the Colts at Indianapolis since 2007. And I think the only reason they won that game was because the Colts rested their starters since they already had the second seed in that playoffs locked up, so they had nothing else to play for. And the Titans have been playing much better this year, especially after that destruction they did against the Packers. And, of course, the Colts are very inconsistent. But like I said, the Colts have beaten the Titans for every year since 2007. 2007 was the last time Titans beat the Colts there. And a lot of them have been back and forth between complete and utter destruction to like really close ones. I mean, last year was close as hell, but then again, when you have Josh Freeman as your star, of course it's going to be close. And I think the game will be close this year, but it's going to be a lot more competitive this time around since both teams are not, well, the Titans are definitely not sucking as bad as they did last year, but the Colts, still sucking. But they're at home and they have history on their side. I think the Colts will squeak it out 31-26. But I wouldn't be surprised either if the Titans somehow pulled it off. And it's the Buccaneers going to the Chiefs for the first time since 2008. And unbelievable. Chiefs have now won, 5 in a row now? And right now have the second spot in the AFC playoffs, which is quite impressive. Especially after that disappointing start to the year. But this team still, I don't trust them like I trust the Broncos and Raiders slightly more. But the Buccaneers also are untrustable. I mean, where they at? 4-5, 4-6, something like that. And of course, they're at the Chiefs, which the Chiefs play much better. I think they're undefeated too at home too. But then again, I think the Buccaneers are undefeated on the road too. So something's gonna give. But of course, the Chiefs should easily win this one, 31-19. And then it's the Bears going to the Giants for the first time since I believe 2010. What a defensive struggle that was. And of course, I mean, that was a pretty impressive victory against the Bengals, although Eli threw those, what was it, 1 or 2 picks? Especially at one, that was god-awful. But, of course, now he's not going up against a strong defense like the Bengals. And, of course, the Bears, being the idiots they are, still starting Jay Cutler at this point. Oh, boy, I'm sure the Giants will crush the Bears 35-9. All right, then we get to the 4 p.m. games, and we're going to start off with the Dolphins going to the Rams for the first time since 2008. And wow, how about that? The Dolphins are now won, 4 in a row now? Back to a winning record again. And the Rams, yay, they won against the Jets, but they're still far, far, far behind the Seahawks. And they're still far behind the Giants, who they lost to. And the Redskins, right now, with the leading spot at 5-3-1, they look like they're in a pretty good position. Or if someone else in the NFC side could keep it away from the Rams. And of course, they're still stubbornly refusing to start Jared Goff. I mean, if you really want to make the playoffs this year, you have to start him and give him a shot. Jesus Christ, they're just being stupid and stubborn as well. And I'm sure that stupid stubbornness will continue as I predict the Dolphins will win 24-20. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams somehow pull it off, since seeing how they're like inconsistent too when it comes to wins. Like they could beat teams that nobody expects them to beat, but then like the next week later when they play a team that they should easily beat, they fall flat on their face. And then it's the Eagles going to the Seahawks for the first time since 2011. Ooh, I remember that Thursday night game when the Seahawks absolutely destroyed the Eagles too. Matter of fact, they've only been to the Seahawks, I think, like 2 times in the last 8 years. And that time too, the Eagles won a close one, I believe. So there's no real like historical reference to go by. So you gotta stick more to the teams, and that Eagles defense still is playing a lot better than last year. But of course they gotta go to Seahawks. If they hold down Russell Wilson, they might have a shot. But I don't. Well, they might be able to. But do you think the Carson Wentz will not be held down by LOB? Oh, you're dead mistaken there. And I think the Seahawks would win 26-16. But knowing how inconsistent the Seahawks have been this year, Eagles beating them, I probably would not be surprised if that did happen. And then it's the Patriots going to the 49ers for the first time since 2008 and making their debut in Levi Stadium, I mean. And wow, who would have thought the Patriots would lose to the Seahawks? They blew a big opportunity there. And of course, the 49ers, what are they, 1-8? The worst team in the NFC, which I'm quite not surprised by at all. They're exceeding my expectation how sucking they are this year. And oh boy, now you got the Patriots coming to town. Unless you pull off some sort of miracle like the Seahawks did last week, you're going to get crushed. And I think that will be the case if the Patriots win 44-17. And even more, hold on to that lead in the AFC playoffs. Then we get to Sunday night, which is a rematch from the wild card last year in a game that, throughout the entire season and going into when the schedule was announced, I didn't think this game should have been a Sunday night game, but now it's starting to look like a much better case, and that's the Packers going to the Redskins. Jesus, the Packers have now lost 3 in a row, and the Redskins pull off that close victory against the Vikings. They definitely look a lot better than the mediocrity I thought they were going to be. And damn, the Packers, my Super Bowl pick, they're getting embarrassed so far this year. But I still have hope for the Packers. I don't fully trust the Redskins, especially considering the fact that the Packers have a pretty good history against the Redskins too, but not as much when they're at the Redskins though. But I think it will be the case. I think the Packers would pull it off 25-24, but I also would not be surprised if the Redskins win it. And then we get to Monday night, and the first ever Monday night game outside the country, and the first regular season game in Mexico City in over 11 years, and that's the Texans going to the Raiders. Wow, who would have thought the Texans would beat the Jaguars. That was quite impressive. And let's see if that, because remember that game back in Mexico City, which was 49ers at Cardinals, that was the highest attended regular season game of all time, like 105,000. I wonder if that will be broken this time. So wow, this game's gonna match up, determine maybe first round bye too, and scenes against the Texans and Ravens possibly too if they lose to this one. And I think that Raiders will absolutely destroy the Texans 27-10, since apparently the Texans can't win on the road unless they're shitty teams like the Jaguars. I mean, remember, they got shut out by a Brady-less Patriots. They got embarrassed by the Vikings. They got embarrassed by the Broncos. So expect that to continue this time as they go down to play the Raiders. So those are my picks. And unfortunately, it sucked that I lost my, I think it was like 6-week winning streak too. So hopefully I can restart it back up again and let that horrible week 10 by me and get back to a win record, because I got to catch up with everyone else. I can't wait for week 11, and I can't wait to watch Saints at Panthers.